Lesson 40, Part 3 is solving equations by dividing. Go ahead and get the title into your notes and push play when you're ready to begin. Okay, before we start on how to solve these equations, I would want to show you what's going on so that you can understand why we're doing this. We have 3x equals 12. That, remember, when the number is next to the letter, that's multiply. 3 times x. Or we could rewrite it as x plus x plus x, because multiply is a repeat of addition. So if I have x plus x and it equals 12, I did 12 ones here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What it's saying is that each of these x's, if you put them all together, they equal 12. And they have to be the same number. So the x is the same as x is the same as x, so they have to be the same number. So really what I'm doing is equally dividing each of these 12 into 3 equal pieces. So there's my 3 equal pieces. And in every equal piece, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 items. 1, 2, 3, 4. So x would have to equal 4 in order for 3 times x to equal 12. So that's what's happening. Well, as you know, anytime you're equally dividing something up, it's division. And just like we learned in the previous lesson when we had x plus 2 equals 5, we learned that the inverse, meaning the opposite property that we were dealing with, this was a positive 2. We wanted to get x by itself, so we did the opposite. The inverse is the word for opposite in this case, inverse. We wanted to do the opposite, or the inverse, of the plus 2 to make him go away. Well, so that was subtract 2. And we did that to both sides because we have to keep that scale balanced, right? If we did like the Cookie Monster took too many cookies off one side, we went out of balance. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other, or you're going to be out of balance. That eliminated that, and we got 5 subtract 2 was 3. Same idea, the inverse of multiply, or the opposite of multiply, is divide. So now that you see what's happening, here's how we tackle that in math. This is 3 times x, so instead I'm going to divide by, to undo it, 3. So instead of multiply by 3, I'm going to divide by 3. Remember, anytime you have a fraction, it's division. This means divide, so this is 3 divided by 3. And that's going to go in and cancel that out because 3 goes into 3 once, and that leaves you with just the 1x left, right? So I just have 1x, that's what I want. I want to know how much 1x is. And if I divided this side by 3, then I must divide this side by 3. Because I have to keep my scale balanced. And so now it's just dividing the bottom into the top. 3 will divide into 12 4 times. So x equals 4, just like we found out when we drew it in pictures. So this is this lesson is very similar to the previous lesson. We're doing the inverse, the opposite of whatever math is going on, and we're making sure to keep our scales balanced by doing the same to the other side of the equal sign. So let's do a redo on this then. So we have 8 equals 4w, and again, this is multiply here, that's 4 times w, so we're going to undo that 4 off of there by doing the opposite, or the inverse of multiply, which is divide. So we're going to divide by 4 to both sides of the equal sign. Remember, you're always trying to get the variable alone. So if the variable's over here, get the number next to him to the other side. If the variable's over here, get the number next to him to the other side. So in this case, here's my variable. Whatever number's hanging out with him is the one that's got to go. So 4 goes into 4 once, so it just really cancels that out. Leaves me with w. And 4 fits into 8 twice, so w equals 2 is the answer. Starting to seem like that. Oh, that's kind of easy. We'll look at another redo. All right, here's another redo. 7x equals 21. Again, this is 7 times x equals 21. And here's my variable. Always find that variable. Here's my variable. I don't want anybody hanging out with him, and that 7 being multiplied there is hanging out. Do the inverse or the opposite of multiply. That's divide. And if I do that to one side of the equal sign, I must do it to the other side of the equal sign, or my scale is going to go all cattywampus on me. So do the same thing to both sides. That cancels out, leaves me with x. And 7 divides into 21 3 times. So x equals 3. All right, how about if you try one? We have 18 equals 2y, 2 times y. Go ahead and pause the video and try that and see what answer you get. When you have an answer, push play. All right, let's see how you did. Here is my variable. That's the guy I'm wanting alone. If you're having trouble figuring out which number I send where, put your finger on your variable or put your pencil on the variable first, and then look who's hanging out with him. 2's hanging out with him. That's the guy that's got to go. So I'll divide 2 because I'm doing the inverse or the opposite of multiply. And if I do that to that side, I have to do that to the other side. 2 fits into 2 once, which cancels that out and leaves me with just the 1y. 2 fits into 18 9 times. You should have gotten y equals 9. That should have been the answer you got. Hopefully that's what you got. Let's try another you do. 3y equals 63. Give that one a try and see how that goes. Push play when you have an answer. All right, you have an answer now. First, I'm going to locate my variable. Here it is. Who's hanging out with him? 3. That's who I want to get rid of. So I'm going to divide by 3, divide by 3. That cancels out and leaves me with y. 3 fitting into 63. It's going to, I don't know how many times. So I'm just going to use the little shortcut so I can do little waffle bites instead of shoving that whole thing in my mouth. 3 fits into 6 twice. Bring down. And 3 fits into 3 once. Oops. Pretend that says 1. Okay. So the answer is 21. Y equals 21. There's more to this, so I'll take you into the next slide. So something you might use this knowledge for is if you are looking for how long or tall or wide something is. And so we're going to talk a bit about area. Earlier in the year and later in this year we'll do the same thing, but we talked about the area of a rectangle. And you find the area of a rectangle by multiplying its length here times its width here. And so if you know the length of a building and you know the width of a building, you can find its area, how big the whole space inside is. So if I wanted to carpet the floor of my classroom, I would need to know how much carpet to buy, so I'd measure the length of the building, I would measure the width of the building, I would multiply them together, and that would tell me how many square feet of carpet I need. It's square feet, written like that or like this, because, or square whatever, in this case we'll say that this is feet. If it was yards, we'd say square yards, whatever. Because what I'm doing is I'm multiplying 9 feet times W feet, and feet times feet is going to just be feet squared. So just like 3 times 3 is 3 squared. So that's why when we're talking about area, you see the label always in feet squared or square feet. People will say that way sometimes too. So just so you know, that's where that label comes from. So in this case, what I have is I have some sort of building or a park. Let's say it's a park, and I wanted to know how wide it is. What I do know is that the park is 36 square feet, is the area. So they gave me A, so I plug in for A, 36. Let's call this a we do, so you should be copying this all down with me. Okay. And I also do know that the length is 9, but what I don't know is the width. I don't know what that is, so I'll just call it W because I don't know it yet. But with this information, I can figure it out. I can figure out what it is because I know how to solve equations when I have that much information. So here's my variable, and it's being multiplied by 9. So I'm going to do the inverse or the opposite of multiply, and that's divide by 9 to get the 9 to go away. That's the guy I want away. And I do that to both sides to keep my scale balanced. That divides in and leaves me with 9. And 9 fits into 36. Hopefully you know that because you know your math facts, that 9 times 4 is 36. So 9 fits into 36 4 times. So the width would be 4 feet. So you can use your knowledge of equations to help with problems that you might come across like that. All right, so let's have you try one like that. I've put the formula for finding area of a rectangle here, and I put the information for you. Let's say we are at a park, and we know that the park is 135 yards squared. And we know that the length of, we don't know the length of the park. We do know that the width is 9 yards. So go ahead and plug in the information to the formula, and then see if you can solve what the length is. Push play once you have an answer. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to start, oops, I need a pencil. I'm going to start by writing the formula down. I like to start by writing the formula down, especially as we get further into geometry. I'm going to highly suggest that and may in fact require it so that it gets burned into your head and so you can see exactly what you're doing. And always keep your math nice and neat. All right, so I have A equals length times width. Area equals length times width. I know that the area of the park is 135 yards square. So instead of A, I'm going to put 135. For L, I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to leave it L. But for W, I know that it's 9, so it's L times 9 is what I have there. Well, the variable is what I'm trying to figure out, so that's the guy I need to get alone. I'm trying to get him all by himself. And the guy hanging out with him is this multiply by 9. I've got to get him out of there. The way I get him out of there is do the inverse or the opposite of multiply. So I divide by 9 to cancel him out, and it leaves me with L. But if I did that to this side, I've thrown my scale off balance. I need to put it back to balance by dividing by 9 over here. 9 goes into 135. I'm not sure how many times. I'm not sure if it goes in evenly either. I might have a fraction or a decimal answer, and that's okay too. Let's see. 9 fitting into 1 doesn't happen. 9 fitting into 13 is only going to happen once. 13 take away 9 is 4. Bring down the 5. 9 fitting into 45, oh yeah, that goes in 5 times exactly. 0 left over. So L, the length, is 15 yards. And that's how you solve those. Not too bad, huh? If you feel pretty confident about this, if this is making sense, go ahead and get the closure questions. If you are still needing to review it a little bit, feel free to rewind to whatever point you need to for further explanation. And if that doesn't help, feel free to come see me about explaining it further.